I have to ask the question: why Star Wars? What is it about Star Wars that excites you that you want to draw Star Wars? Brian, what are your thoughts?
I mean, for me, I fell in love with the movie when I was a kid and the toys, and I grew up with
Yeah.
Star Wars, and I was drawing Star Wars anyway,
Mm.
So even though I mean, I love comic books, I love working in the comic book industry, and I love superheroes, but Star Wars has always been like my
Mm.
number one fandom.
Mm.
So it was really cool to take something I'm already passionate about and would be doing anyway, and then have the
Yep.
opportunity through Joe Corroney and Acme Archives and Lucasfilm to get to do it professionally. It's just a dream come true.
Oh, for sure, it would be. I mean, just to do anything Star Wars for a living would just be amazing. So, yeah, I can see where you're coming from with all of that for sure.
And I have to admit, Brian, you do a lot of the propaganda style posters. What was
Mm.
it that was the avenue you wanted to take when you were doing the artwork?
Well, I think, in the past, I've painted and colored a lot of Joe's work on and off through the years, and he's really been a mentor to me. And he had illustrated some propaganda Star Wars artwork in the past, and I always thought it was really cool. And I like all that vintage stuff myself too, vintage travel posters and old advertisements and propaganda and stuff. So when I finally kind of had the opportunity to do my first official Star Wars poster illustration, I did a bunch of sketches and I really kind of zeroed in on that idea of the imperial propaganda. So I really, as I'm sketching along, I wanted to do something with Empire Strikes Back because it was coming up as one of the anniversaries for that film, and Hoth and AT-ATs, and I just kind of kept working it out until it became this enlistment poster for the Imperial troops with AT-ATs and everything. It was called Crush the Rebellion. So that first illustration like that really came from that place of being enamored with vintage things, and luckily all the fans really took to it, and I think that opened the door for me to do more.
No, I love them. They're amazing. I wish I'd been able to grab some myself. Actually, I went on there last night. I was like, oh, I've got to grab some of those. A lot of them are
That's
sold
the thing.
out.
Oh, yeah,
You got to be quick
yeah.
with
There's
this
so
stuff.
many. Yeah, my house would just be covered if I could have everything.
No.
Yeah, I'm very, very,
They're
very
brilliant.
lucky that the fans seem to like it, and most of the propaganda pieces I do tend to sell out, which makes me feel good, but it also means the
Yeah,
fans like it, and
Yeah,
it also gives me the opportunity to then do more. So it's been very
that's it.
rewarding to have this great relationship with Star Wars fans.
That's it.
oh,
And,
for sure.
Joe, yourself, why Star Wars?
Well, basically, I mean, I grew up with it. I saw the first film when I was 4 years old. So Star Wars really is responsible for making me, I mean, really the person I am today, because
Mm.
I started drawing as soon as I saw Star Wars. I saw the film. I came home later, probably, I don't even know, it might have been a month or so later. I got the Marvel Comics adaptation, the comic book. So that's how I relived the movie, because the toys weren't out yet. The toys didn't come out till the following, I think after December, they did the early bird package. So the only way to really relive the film at that point, because there wasn't DVDs, there wasn't even VHS or anything like that back then yet. So I relived the movie through the comic book, through the Marvel comic, and I would read it all the time. I would draw pictures from it. So Star Wars really inspired my imagination when I was barely 4 years old. So I drew it all the time as a kid,
Mm.
and I would later on, I got the action figures when those came out. So then I would draw the action figures and tell my own stories that way. And I've just been doing it my whole life, ever, since 1977. So to be able, once I got to college, to art college, I knew I wanted to be a comic book illustrator, but I also wanted to do Star Wars officially in some capacity. And at that point, the special editions weren't really even out yet, so there wasn't
Mm.
there wasn't a lot of Star Wars happening at that point in like 1995, 96.
The
But
dark years, we call
yeah,
it.
and
Yes, very dark.
they I was still a fan though, because I was still collecting, even though there was very little out there. I was collecting the West End Games books, all the little metal miniatures. I was collecting the Dark Horse comics that were just starting to come out. So I was still, in my heart, Star Wars was still alive, and I was like, well, I wanted, I knew I wanted to do something for Dark Horse if I could. Once I got out of, if I could break into the industry. But I ended up, once I graduated art college, I sent my portfolio right away to West End Games because they were doing the role-playing game for Star Wars, and I got accepted to do art for that, and that was my first official Star Wars art. And then I illustrated like 20 different books for West End Games, tons, like hundreds of pen and ink illustrations and full color illustrations back when like Photoshop was like just coming out. So yeah, I started right away in my professional career getting published in Star Wars right out of college, and then the special editions came out. Then it just took off from there. At that point, Star Wars fever was big time at that point, and that opened a lot of doors for me to keep going, to make a career illustrating Star Wars.
Wow, that's amazing.